Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you. I spent most of last night reading through the stack of research we have for today, and I had two very distinct, very conflicting reactions.
Oh.
Yeah. The first one was just pure geeky excitement. I mean, the technology we're looking at it's absolutely incredible. It really is the stuff of science fiction coming to life.
Right.
But the second reaction, it was dread.
Dread. That is a very strong word to start a Monday morning with.
It is, but I think it's warranted. We aren't talking about distant sci-fi anymore. We aren't talking about, colonies on Mars or flying cars, which are fun to think about, but they don't really impact my Tuesday schedule. We are talking about something that hits everyone listening right in the wallet. We're talking about the end of the job as we know it.
It's the subject of the moment, isn't it? The sources we've pulled for this deep dive, everything from economic forecasts to technical breakdowns of the latest neural networks, they're all pointing to one very uncomfortable intersection. The collision between artificial intelligence and the human workforce.
And just to set the stakes here, because I really want everyone to understand the gravity of this, I want to throw a number at you. This is from the lead article in our stack, and it's a statistic that genuinely made me put my coffee down this morning.
Okay.
According to these projections, by the year 2030, 50% of the jobs that exist today could be automated.
Wow.
Not changed slightly. Automated. Gone.
It is a staggering figure, that 50%. And I think before we panic, we have to contextualize that a little. Because when we hear automation, our brains, conditioned by, history books, they go to a very specific place.
Yeah, you think factories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We think of the Industrial Revolution. We think of steam engines, of a robotic arm in a car factory welding a door shut.
Right. The blue-collar shift, machines replacing muscle. We've seen that movie. We know how it ends.
Exactly. But the future shock that's described in these articles is fundamentally different. This isn't about muscle. This is about mind. This isn't about robots on an assembly line. This is about algorithms entering the open plan office. It's about code entering the art studio. It is about software taking a seat in the boardroom.
That's the scary part. It is the white-collar shift. So I want everyone listening to just do a quick visualization with me. Picture your workspace right now. Maybe you're in a cubicle, maybe a home office. Look at the stuff you do every day. The emails, the strategy docs, the spreadsheets, the, creative brainstorming.
Yeah.
Now imagine half of that just evaporating, vanishing into the cloud. That is the reality we're trying to wrap our heads around today.
And our mission for this deep dive is to dissect that reality. We're calling it the human element in the age of automation.
Right.
We want to move past the panic, because frankly, panic doesn't pay the bills and really understand the mechanics.
Right.
We need to figure out, if the machine does the thinking, what is left for the human?
Okay, a quick sidebar before we jump in. We know a lot of you use these deep dives to help sharpen your English skills. This topic is dense. I mean, the source material uses some incredibly sophisticated language.
It does.
Words like hyperautomation and prosody and linguistic friction.
Which are fantastic words, by the way. Very precise.
They are. So we're going to keep the pace conversational, and when we hit those big conceptual roadblocks or tricky vocabulary words, we are going to slow down. We'll unpack them. We want to make sure you're not just hearing the words, but really grasping the nuance.
Absolutely. Understanding the terminology is half the battle in understanding the concept. So where do we begin?
Let's start with the invisibility factor. This was a concept that popped up in, I think, 3 or 4 of the different articles. They kept calling this the silent revolution.
It is a perfect description. Think about the old way of automation. If a factory replaces 1,000 workers with robots, it's a very physical event.
Yeah, you can see it.
You see the robots. They're big, orange, loud machines taking up space. You can point at them and say, that is what took the job.
But you can't point at an algorithm.
Precisely. This shift is cognitive, not physical. It's software running on a server farm in a completely different country. It's a piece of code that wakes up at 3 a.m., processes 5 million transaction records, identifies the anomalies, writes a report, and emails it to the CEO before you've even hit your snooze button.
Wow.
You don't see the replacement. You just see the output.
And for the longest time, we told ourselves a comforting lie about that output. We said, okay, machines can do the boring stuff. They can do the math. They can tighten bolts. But they can't do the human stuff. They can't be creative. They don't have a soul.
And that defense mechanism, it is crumbling fast.
It really is. Let's look at the creative class. I used to think musicians were safe. I mean, music is pure emotion, right? It's the human experience turned into sound.
Yeah.
But looking at these reports on the latest audio generation models, I am not so sure anymore.
It's fascinating and, frankly, unnerving.
Hmm.
We aren't just talking about a computer playing a MIDI keyboard. We're talking about AI that understands the theory of music.
The theory.
Yeah. It understands tension and release. It understands harmonic progression. You can prompt these systems with something totally abstract, like, give me a jazz track that feels like a rainy Tuesday in Paris in the 1920s, but make the drums sound like modern lo-fi hip-hop.
And it doesn't just give you a garbled mess.
No, it generates professional-grade audio in seconds. And here's the kicker. It is often indistinguishable from human work. We are seeing AI generate background music for YouTube videos, jingles for commercials, even entire symphonic movement.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here. Is it real creativity? Or is it just really, really complex mimicry? I mean, the AI has never been to Paris. It's never felt sad on a Tuesday.
No.
It's just predicting the next note based on math.
And that is the philosophical question of the century. Does the origin matter if the output moves you? If you cry listening to a song, does your tear dry up if you find out a GPU wrote the melody? The market. The market suggests the answer is no. If it's good and it's cheap, businesses will use it.
That's a brutal truth. And it's not just music, it's writing too. We're seeing it in script writing. The sources mention that studios are actually using AI to structure narratives.
This is huge in the entertainment industry sources, yeah.
Yeah.
The AI might not write the next Godfather script from scratch.
Yeah.
Not yet, anyway.
Right.
But it can do the heavy lifting. It can outline a plot. It can generate 10 variations of a single scene. It can say, here's the dialogue if the character is angry, and here's the dialogue if the character is sarcastic.
So the junior writer, the person whose job used to be, hey, go write 10 versions of the scene so the showrunner can pick one, that job is gone.
That job is gone. And that is a theme we will keep coming back to. The disappearance of the apprentice role. The entry-level job where you learn the craft by doing the grunt work. The robot does the grunt work now.
Let's pivot to the visual side. Graphic design. This feels like the most visible shift because we see these AI images everywhere now.
The speed is the differentiator here. A human graphic designer needs time. They need to draft, sketch, color, render. If a client says, I don't like it, change the lighting, that's another 4 hours of work.
At least.
The algorithm does it all simultaneously. We are seeing machines create these incredibly complex images that rival professional human output, not just in quality, but in sheer volume.
So the creatives are under siege, but the sources also pivot to the other side of the brain, the analytical fields, the jobs that require, expensive degrees and certifications.
This is what they're calling the white-collar crunch. Let's look at accounting.
Which, to be fair, everyone always joked was going to be replaced by a calculator eventually.
True. But this is different. Accounting is a field built on rules, numbers, and patterns. That is the native habitat of an algorithm. An AI can look at 10 years of financial data and spot a fraudulent transaction in a millisecond.
Oh.
A human auditor might take weeks to find that same needle in the haystack.
So the accountant who spends their day just checking boxes and verifying numbers.
They're in trouble. It's not just about doing the math. It's about pattern recognition at an inhuman scale.
And journalism. This one hits close to home for us.
We have to be specific here. We aren't talking about deep investigative reporting yet, but data-heavy news.
Like sports scores.
Finance reports, sports summaries, weather reports. That is already being automated. If you read a recap of a minor league baseball game or a quarterly earnings report, there is a very good chance it was written by an AI. It takes the data, the score, the earnings per share, and just wraps it in sentences.
It's efficient, but it feels a little cold.
It's incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
And then there's the legal profession. The image of the lawyer surrounded by stacks of dusty books.
Right, looking for that one case from 1950 that proves their point.
Completely obsolete.
Yeah.
Legal AI can scan millions of pages of case law in seconds. It finds precedents, it summarizes arguments, it can even predict outcomes with a certain probability. The work that used to take a team of junior associates weeks can now be done before lunch.
So if we synthesize all of this, from the artist to the accountant, it seems like no traditional silo is sealed off. The algorithm it's agnostic.
That's a great word for it.
If the task can be converted into data, it can be automated.
That is the key takeaway of this section. The walls are coming down. It doesn't matter if you wear a hard hat or a suit or if you hold a paintbrush or a calculator.
This brings us to a really important concept in our second section. The sources call it the erosion of judgment and invisible job loss. I found this distinction really helpful because we usually think of job loss as, a sudden event.
Right.
A factory closes, pink slips go out.
Right. That's visible job loss. But invisible job erosion is more insidious. It is what happens when you slowly slice away parts of a job until there's nothing left for the human to do.
Can you give us a concrete example of how that works? How does judgment get replaced by code?
Let's take the classic example of a loan officer at a bank. Rewind 30 years. If you wanted a loan to buy a house, you put on a tie, you went to the bank, and you sat across the desk from a human being.
A person who probably knew your dad or, knew the neighborhood you were buying in.
Exactly. They looked at your paperwork, sure. But they also looked at you. They asked questions. They used their judgment. They might say, well, the numbers are a little tight, but this person seems reliable. They have a good reputation. I'm going to approve it. It was a human decision.
And today?
Today, that decision is a calculation. You type your data into a web form. An algorithm pulls your credit score, your debt-to-income ratio, your spending history. It runs a risk model against 10 million other borrowers, and it spits out a yes or a no.
The human judgment.
The gut feeling has been completely removed.
So the human who used to have that job, what are they doing now?
They're likely just managing the software. Or they've been removed entirely. The role didn't disappear overnight. It just slowly transformed. From a decision-making role to a data entry role, and then to an obsolete role.
That is a terrifying progression, but it explains why the unemployment numbers might look okay while people feel less secure. The quality of the job is changing.
Precisely. We are trading judgment for processing power.
This brings us to a really impactful term in the text that I want to unpack. Hyper-automated.
Yes, this is a big one.
Break it down for us. How is this different from just automated?
Well, look at the prefix hyper. It means over, above, excessive. In a business context, hyperautomation means we aren't just automating one single task, like sending an email.
Okay.
We are automating the entire ecosystem.
So it's the whole chain.
Correct. In a hyper-automated state, the sales data talks to the inventory bot, which talks to the shipping algorithm, which talks to the accounting software. It all happens at a speed and a scale that completely exceeds human pacing. Humans can't move that fast. So in a hyper-automated system, humans are often the bottleneck.
And if there's one thing businesses hate, it is a bottleneck.
That is the cold logic of it. If the human slows down the loop, you remove the human.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there because this is getting heavy. We have established that the machines are coming for the creative jobs, the analytical jobs, and they are doing it faster than we can blink. So the million-dollar question is, what is left? If AI can write the symphony and balance the books, what are you and I supposed to do?
This is section 3, redefining human value. And I think this is actually the most hopeful part of the conversation.
Okay.
Because despite everything we just said, there are things algorithms simply cannot do, at least not well. We have to identify the uniquely human traits.
Traits that are computationally impossible to replicate.
Or at least computationally inefficient. The sources point to 2 main pillars here, empathy and nuance.
Let's talk about empathy first, because I know some people will say, hey, chatbots are getting pretty polite. They say please and thank you, and I'm sorry to hear that.
That's true. AI can simulate the language of empathy. It can follow a script that says, if the user uses angry words, respond with soothing words. But simulation is not the same as feeling. There's a distinction between cognitive empathy, knowing how someone feels, and effective empathy, actually sharing that feeling.
Right. If I'm a doctor delivering bad news to a patient.
An AI can give you the medical statistics, it can tell you the survival rates, but it cannot sit in the room and hold the emotional space. It cannot look someone in the eye and convey, I understand your pain and I am here with you. That connection is biological. It's social. It is deeply, deeply human. That is a value that cannot be coded.
So jobs that require that heavy emotional lifting, nursing, therapy, high-level management are safer.
They're safer because the product is the connection itself.
And what about nuance?
Nuance is about understanding the gray areas. Algorithms love binary choices, 0 or 1, yes or no. But the real world is rarely black and white. It involves cultural context, unspoken subtext, irony, humor.
Like reading the room.
Exactly. Imagine a high-stakes negotiation. An AI might analyze the contract terms perfectly, but a human negotiator can sense that the person across the table is nervous about a specific clause, not because of the money, but because of pride or reputation. And AI misses that subtext. Humans excel at the messy, unstructured, emotional layers of communication.
The sources also mention leadership and complex problem solving.
Yes, think about leadership. An algorithm can optimize a schedule, but can it motivate a team? Can it inspire people to work late to finish a passion project?
Probably not. It would probably just fire the less efficient one.
Precisely. Leadership is about influence and inspiration. That is a human domain. And regarding complex problem-solving, AI is fantastic at answering questions. If you ask it a question, it will give you the answer. But humans are necessary to ask the right questions.
That is a great distinction. The AI provides the solution, but the human defines the problem.
Yes. Critical thinking is about framing the issue. It's about deciding what matters.
Now, speaking of human traits, I want to bring up a vocabulary spotlight that I absolutely loved in the source material. It's a linguistic term, prosody.
Ah, yes, prosody. Prosody.
Why is this relevant to AI?
So, in linguistics, prosody refers to the patterns of rhythm and sound used in speech. It includes intonation, stress, and timing. It's the music of language.
It's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Exactly. If I say, oh, great, with a falling pitch, I sound disappointed. If I say, oh, great, with a rising pitch and energy, I sound excited. If I say, oh, great, with a slow drag, I'm being sarcastic.
Right.
Those are all the same two words. The meaning changes entirely based on the prosody.
And this is a struggle for AI.
It is the uncanny valley of audio. AI is getting better, but it often struggles to match the prosody to the context. A computer might read a tragic news story with the same bright, chipper intonation it uses to read a cookie recipe. That mismatch is a dead giveaway. Prosody is a marker of human emotional intelligence. It reveals our intent.
So relying on those subtle cues in communication is something humans still have over the machines.
For now, yes. Absolutely.
That is such a cool concept. So we have empathy, nuance, leadership, and the very way we speak. These are our strongholds. But we can't just, rest on our laurels. The world is changing and we have to adapt.
We do. And that leads us to section 4, the new roles. We aren't just being replaced. Some of us are evolving. We are seeing the rise of the AI whisperer.
I love that title, AI whisperer. It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, like you're taming a dragon.
It does, but it is a very real, very high-paying job right now. The technical term is often prompt engineer.
So let's break down what a prompt engineer actually does. Is it just typing questions into a chat box?
It's much more subtle than that. As we established, AI is powerful, but it's very literal. It needs specific inputs to give you good outputs. If you ask a vague question, you get a vague answer.
Right.
A prompt engineer is someone who understands how to craft the specific inputs, the prompts, to guide the AI to the best possible result.
So they are like a translator.
In a way.
Yeah.
They are translating human intent into machine logic. They know which words to use, how to structure the request, what constraints to set.
It's ironic, isn't it? We spent decades learning computer code -C plus Python, Java to talk to machines. And now the new skill is learning to use English or natural language in a way that acts like code. We're learning to speak logic.
It is a new form of literacy. And it brings us to another fascinating term from the source material, linguistic friction.
Linguistic friction. Let's unpack this one.
Well, friction is resistance. It's when two things rub against each other and create heat or slowing down. Linguistic friction refers to the difficulties encountered when different languages or communication styles interact.
In this case, the friction between human and machine.
Exactly. Humans speak in metaphors, in idioms, in vague generalities. Machines speak in precision. That gap creates friction. The machine doesn't understand what you really mean.
Okay.
The prompt engineer's job is to smooth out that linguistic friction. They grease the wheels of communication so that the human gets what they want from the machine without the frustration.
I like that. They are the diplomats between the biological and the digital.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay, we have covered the jobs, the tech, the skills. Now we need to zoom out, way out. Because if 50% of jobs change or disappear, that isn't just a workplace issue, that is a societal issue. This is section 5, the economic earthquake.
The term earthquake is appropriate. The sources discuss the structural shaking of our economy, and the first major tremor is the skills gap.
We hear this term a lot, but what does it mean in this specific context?
It means there is a widening canyon between the skills the workforce currently possesses and the skills the automated future demands.
So we have millions of people trained to do things like data entry, basic accounting, routine writing that machines can now do. And we don't have enough people trained to do the things machines can't do.
And the scary part is the speed. Technology grows exponentially. Moore's law, right? But education. Education changes linearly and slowly. It takes years to update a university curriculum. By the time a student graduates, the tech they learned might be obsolete. This
Wow.
gap is growing faster than traditional education can keep up with.
So that leads to the question of educational reform. If machines are doing the rote memorization and the calculation, what is the point of schools teaching those things?
That is the big debate. The consensus in our sources is that we need a massive pivot. We need to stop testing students on their ability to memorize facts. Google knows all the facts. We need to stop testing them on basic calculation. The AI can do the math.
So what do we teach?
We teach them how to think. We teach critical thinking. We teach interdisciplinary collaboration, how to connect dots between history and science and art. We teach emotional intelligence. We teach them how to be better humans, because that is the only competitive advantage they will have left.
It sounds wonderful, but also difficult to measure. You can grade a math test. It's hard to grade an empathy test.
True, but the economy might force our hand.
And speaking of the economy forcing hands, we have to talk about the concept of UBI, Universal Basic Income.
Yes. Now, this is a hot topic. It's controversial, but it is mentioned in several of the articles as a potential response to this automation wave, so we need to look at the logic.
Right. And let's be clear. We are reporting on the economic theory presented in the text, not taking a political stance.
Correct. The logic goes like this. If 50% of the jobs are automated, that means companies are making products much cheaper and faster. They are generating massive wealth because they don't have to pay salaries.
Right. The robot doesn't need health insurance. It doesn't need a pension. It doesn't take lunch breaks.
Exactly. But here's the flaw in the loop. If robots do all the work and humans don't have jobs, who buys the stuff?
If I don't have a paycheck, I can't buy the cheap toaster the robot made.
Exactly. The economic cycle breaks. Supply goes up, but demand crashes because there is no income. Universal basic income is presented as a way to decouple basic survival from traditional employment.
So the government, or some entity, provides a base level of income to everyone, regardless of whether they work, to ensure they can survive and participate in the economy.
That is the theory. Proponents argue it provides a safety net during this massive transition and allows people to pursue creative or human work without fear of starvation. Critics, of course, argue about the cost, inflation, and the impact on human motivation.
Of course.
But in the context of our deep dive, it's important to see UBI not just as a political idea, but as a direct response to the economic earthquake of automation. It's an attempt to answer the question, how do we live if the machines do the earning?
It's a huge question. And honestly, we could do an entire deep dive just on that. But we're coming to the end of our hour, and we want to wrap this up with some clear takeaways.
Let's recap the journey. We started with that shock 50% of jobs potentially automated by 2030. We looked at the invisible robots entering the office.
We saw how they're taking over creative fields like music and design and analytical fields like law and accounting.
We defined hyperautomation and the risk of invisible job erosion, where judgment is replaced by calculation.
But we also found hope. We talked about the irreplaceable human value of empathy, nuance, and leadership. We learned about prosody and why the way we speak matters.
And we looked at the new roles, like the prompt engineer who manages linguistic friction.
So here's the final choice. The source material boils it down to 3 words: adapt, thrive, or resist.
And the harsh reality is that resistance is likely futile. You cannot stop the algorithm any more than the weavers could stop the industrial looms in the 1800s. The technology will advance.
So that leaves adapt or thrive.
Adaptation is the path forward. It means looking at your role and asking, which parts of this can a machine do? And letting the machine do them. And then asking, which parts can only I do? And doubling down on those.
It's about reinventing yourself. So here's the provocative thought we want to leave you with today, and I want you to really mull this over. If an algorithm can do your job better and faster than you, are you willing to let it? And more importantly, are you willing to do the hard work of reinventing yourself to do the things the algorithm can't do?
Are you ready to become more human? Because in the age of AI, being human is your killer app.
That is a great way to put it. Being human is the killer app. Well, that wraps up this deep dive. We hope this discussion helped you not only understand the future of AI, but also helped you practice your listening skills with some complex sentence structures and vocabulary.
Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep asking questions.
We will see you in the next deep dive. Goodbye.
Goodbye.